Welcome. I'm Chris Murdoch with Revelation and Restoration Academy of Music and Drama. Teacher Chris, Mr. Murdoch, Mr. M, whatever you want to call me, just don't call me late for dinner. All right. Today we're going to be learning about chords, and we're going to learn about how to use chords to make our own music. Chords can be some of the greatest keys, pardon the pun, because they do use the keys on the piano, of course, to making great sounding music on our own, as well as playing a lot of contemporary and classical music. Now, classical, uh, the more classical music that we get into, the more important it is to be able to also read music, but it's important for contemporary as well. However, today we're going to focus on chords. Some pianists know just how to read chords and not music, the sheet music on the staffs, or staves as we also call them. Some know just how to read music on the staves, and they know about how to play chords, but they don't know how to just use chords to improvise their own music. So today will be chords, and staff music, well, that can be another time, Lord willing. So let's get started. Yourself, thank you for life. Thank you for music. Thank you for this time to learn and develop the talent that you've given. Help us honor you with it and with everything. In Jesus' name, amen. Now, I want to play something for you. Now, that was pretty simple, but it used all white keys and it used chords, and I played the root of each chord. We'll understand what that means in a minute. In the left hand, played the chords in the the right hand, and I played the chords in different ways. I played them in different inversions. We'll talk about what that means in a moment also. And I just used that to come up with my own music on the spot. The more you know about chords, as well as just the more comfortable you become with the instrument and with music, the more that you'll be able to do this. So, one of the simplest keys to play in, arguably, at least the simplest key to read in, the simplest major key anyway, to read in on the staff, is the key of C. Key of C major. By the way, when we don't say major or minor or anything like that, we mean major by default. C major sounds like this. That's the C major scale. It uses the most common notes that are used in C major when we're in the key of C major. And then, like I said, I used all white keys. Well, notice that the C major scale was made up of all white keys. Can I use black keys when I'm playing in the key of C major? Sure. But right now, let's keep it basic. We can stick to the notes that are part of the scale. We say that these notes are part of the key that we're in. All right, when we're on just white keys, there are certain chords we can make. When we're on just black keys, there are certain chords we can make. And then there are certain chords that take a combination of white keys and black keys. But if we're keeping it simple and keeping just to the notes of the C scale, let's talk about what chords we can make with those notes. Those notes, since those are part of the scale, and then these chords, because the notes in the scale are part of those chords, well, those chords are called native chords to the key. And they're the ones that sound the most natural in this key. So what we do to make a chord, basically, is we take at least 3 notes on the piano, 3 keys, and normally they're separated by what we call a third. What does that mean? Well, it means we play one letter name, let's say C. We skip one letter name, D. That makes 2. And then we play the next letter name, let's say E. That makes 3. So we call it a third. E, there's 1. We play it. We skip F, the next letter name. That makes 2. And then we play the next letter name, G. Now, whether I was playing the white keys or black keys, whether I was playing C, E, G, whether I was playing C, E flat, G, or C, E flat, G flat, or C, E, G sharp. Those would all be different kinds of chords, and they would all be made of thirds. From any kind of C, whether it's a C natural, the white key, or the C sharp, or another name for B is C flat. If I called it that, and then I went up to some kind of an E, E natural, the white key, E flat, or even another name for F is E sharp, we would still call it a third if we were using some kind of C, some kind of E for that name. But we won't get into that right now. We won't get any deeper into it than what I just said, because right now we're learning about the chords that are native to the key of C. And like I said, they use all white keys. So in the key of C, we've got C major. I can play the root, the key that the chord is named after, in the left hand. And there are other things to do with the left hand, but that's what we'll do for now, keeping it basic. And then there's the D minor. There's the chord, and I'm playing the root in the left hand. There's the E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished. Notice it has a lot different sound. It's a very unstable chord, meaning it sounds like it wants to change, it wants to go somewhere. And then we're back to C major. See, when we're just on white keys, there are 3 major chords that we can make. C major, F major, G major. So to make those, you just play every other white key starting with C, play every other white key starting with F, play every other white key starting with G. Just playing 3 keys at a time. Those are some of the most common chords in C major traditionally, although there are plenty of other chords that are used. And yeah, the more modern you get, the more you might hear non-traditional chords. But yeah, I'm doing the same thing I just did. I'm playing the C chord, the F chord, and the G chord, but I'm adding the root of each chord in the left hand. By the way, notice I'm playing it in 2 octaves, 2 places on the piano, like from one C to the next C, one F to the next F, one G to the next G, that octave. So try playing something on the C chord, the F chord, and the G chord. But what I want you to do, though, is start out with just one of those. Pick any of them. You could pick the C chord, and you could improvise on it, just playing it in different rhythms with all the notes at once. Playing it one note at a time, in any order, any rhythm, or a combination of those. And yeah, as far as the left hand, you can just play the root in octaves and just repeat it once in a while. You can play the root in different rhythms. You can play it rocking up and down on the octave, which I really like to do. Gives it more variety. You can do something like this. You can do something more classical. But yeah, that is an example of what you can do on one of those chords. You can do that on the C chord, you can do that on the F chord, the G chord. I want you to pick one of those, pause the video, and do it with the C E G, the F A C, or the G B D. One of those chords. All right, pause the video and then come back when you've played. All right, we're back. Welcome again. Chris Murdoch with Revelation and Restoration Academy of Music and Drama. So, how was it? If you're not used to improvising yet, it might have been a little odd, or maybe it was really easy. What we want to do now is talk about inversions of the chords. And this is why I had you just play on one of those chords for now. Because, well, when I was first taught to play chords, I was taught to play them just the way that I showed you a while ago. There's the C chord with the C on the bottom. There's the F chord with the F on the bottom. There's the G chord with the G on the bottom. But guess what? When you play the chords, you don't have to always have that C on the bottom in the C chord, the F on the bottom in the F chord, the G on the bottom with the G chord. It has the most stable sound when you do that, or stabilest sound, I should say. And we call that the root position because the root, the key that the chord is named after, is on the bottom. But actually, anytime we have a C, an E, and a G, it's still a C chord, even if we've got the C on top and the E on the bottom. Or if we've got the C in the middle, the G on the bottom, the E on top. It doesn't matter, it's still a C chord, as long as if you've got a C somewhere, an E somewhere, a G somewhere. Those are called different inversions. Now notice when I changed to that first inversion, and that's what we call it, the first inversion, if the E is on the bottom. And when I changed to that second inversion with G on the bottom, I also changed what I was playing in the left hand. I played the C in the bass, I played the E in the bass, I played the G in the bass. If I was going to keep the root in the bass, even if I inverted it in the right hand, E, G, C, or G, C, E. By the way, when we say what keys we're playing, we always name them from bottom to top, left to right. C, E, G, root position. E, G, C, first inversion. G, C, E, second inversion. If I still play the root in the left hand, then it's technically really still in root position. I'm inverting the right hand, but the left hand is putting it back in root position overall, because root position really just means you've got the root of the chord on the bottom. So anyway, when I was first taught to play the piano with chords, and chords weren't the first thing I was taught melody first. Actually, I was taught the names of the notes first. But anyway, names of the keys. I was taught to play the chords all in root position. And then when I started playing by a combination of notes and chords, I think, from one of my favorite musicals, one of my favorite secular musicals anyway, The Sound of Music. My piano teacher let me figure out on my own that it was hard to jump to all the different chords. And then she taught me about inversions and how those made the chords easier to change. But when I tried to do that with my first ever long-term piano student, what happened was I didn't introduce inversion soon enough, and she got so comfortable with keeping the chords in root position and just jumping around to them that she later just decided, when I tried to teach her inversions, she decided that those were, well, that those were too hard for her. If we learn them from the beginning, they'll be a lot easier because, well, they'll come to us easier once we learn them, and we'll learn them early on. They'll be easy to us early on, and we won't get comfortable just jumping around in root position and be unwilling to learn something else. And inversions are for more than just the purpose of being able to jump around the chords easier. Inversions also work because, well, remember what I was playing at the beginning. I used inversions, and I'm not going to play the same thing. I'm going to improvise something else. I don't even remember what all I played. I just know I used the native chords of C major, and maybe just the C, F, and G major chords. But notice how I'm using inversions. The only time I played um, in root position as far as the right hand goes, although I played the root in the left hand, and that put it overall back in root position. The only time I didn't invert the chord in the right hand was on that first C chord. After that, I went to the F chord. Now, how is that an F chord? Isn't it an F chord F A C? Isn't it F A C? Well, it is, and that's what I had. But I had the C on the bottom. C F A. That's an inversion of the F chord. Remember, just like C E G, E G, and then the C on the top, G, and then the C and E above that are all the C chord. Well, it's the same with the F chord. F A C, root position. A C F, first inversion. C F A, second inversion. Those are all the F chord. And what I did, I went from the C chord in root position to the F chord, which overall it was in root position because I had the root in the left hand, but in the right hand it was inverted. When I did that, it was like I was making a melody out of the top note. We would call that the soprano voice. That top voice went from G to A. La, 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 la. And by thinking of inversions, I was able to play a chord under it that sounded the way I wanted it to sound. If I wasn't using inversions, well, I remember a friend of mine who didn't understand the theory of music very well, although he was a great musician. Um, he was a great musician in his school band, and then in the church band that we had at the time. Later on, and he started writing his own music, and he started coming up with this melody and having just the major chord built on each note. It was something like. Wasn't that? It was something like that. It was an odd melody, but it would have sounded great with the right chords. It sounded a little it still sounded a little odd with just a major chord built on each melody note. And I was too nice to tell him that it would actually sound better if we would have put different chords, different types of chords with those. And it's kind of like that with these. By the way, I wasn't his teacher. I was just a member of the band, and he was the leader. That's why I was too nice to tell him. But anyway, he would have accepted my input. I should have. But remember when I was playing that melody that went from G to the A, if I would have just played, say, all major chords, then eventually I made that top note melody go to the E, to the B. If I would have just built a major chord underneath it, that would be a very different feel. And then the melody eventually went up to the C. If I just built a major chord underneath that, there would be the F. By the way, I know I haven't taught how to make the D major or E major chords, but I'm just using this as an example. Even if I would have just stayed in notes that were okay. Well, first, let me show you. Okay, did you hear how different a feel that had from what I played earlier? What I played earlier sounded a lot more natural and native to the key of C major. There's nothing wrong with, but it just has a different feel than I was wanting. And then if I even just built a chord underneath each melody note, but kept it on all white keys to be native to the key of C major, it sounds more natural to the key, but it still has a different feel. Again, it's good. It's just not the feel I was looking for. So when you know how to invert the chords, then you're not stuck with just, if you want to play a melody with chords under it, you're not stuck with just the whatever chord has that melody note on top of it in the in the root position. I can say, I don't want just that D minor chord or D major. I want the F chord. Oh, but there's an A on top. Well, C, F, A. There, I'm inverting that F chord. I get to the melody note of B. Well, let's say that E major or even E minor, to be native to the key, just isn't what I'm feeling. So I want a G chord, but I've got a B on top. So can I make that a G chord? Sure. GBD is a G chord, so I could just put the D on the bottom of it. D, G, B. And if I want that stable sound, I could still put the G, the root, in the left hand. I'm inverting it in the right hand, but putting it back into root position with the left hand. And there we go. So what you want to do then, when you're playing in the key of C, generally, is you want to learn the inversions of these chords, and you want to become comfortable playing them, and then just go back and forth between the inversions of the different chords, and the inversions of maybe the root position C and the first inversion F. Maybe the root position, the second inversion F. Yeah, first inversion would have A on the bottom, second inversion would have C on the bottom. Second inversion F in the right hand, but root position because of the left hand. Back to the C. You can do a lot of things going back and forth between those between that root position C and that inverted F. And you just use the same fingering. When we play a chord in root position, we use the thumb, the middle, and the pinky. On the right hand, we say that's finger 1, finger 3, finger 5. Or if we play it with the left hand, use the pinky, the middle finger, the thumb. On the left hand, we say that's 5, 3, and 1. The thumb is number 1 on both hands. When we play the second inversion, we also use in the right hand, if we're doing the right hand, we use that same fingering. So just try playing back and forth between the C in root position, C, E, G with fingers 1, 3, and 5 of the right hand. And then just keep that C there and just move the middle note and the top note up 1 key each. We call that a second, 1, 2, from E to F, or a second, 1, 2, from G to A. Just practice. You can start slow. You can play the notes broken up in different rhythms. You can play the notes all together, blocked. It doesn't matter. You can combine those. It doesn't matter. So pause and practice going back and forth between the C major root position and the F major second inversion. And yes, if you play the left hand, you might go up to the F there, the root, put it back in root position overall while the right hand is inverting it. That's fine. Or you can just stay on the C in the left hand the whole time. So pause the recording and try it. Okay, welcome back. So, like I said, the C major, the F major, and the G major are the 3 major chords that you can make on white keys, and they're very common. They're the 3 major chords you can make on all white keys, and they're very common in the key of C major traditionally. So there's the C in root position, there's the F in second inversion. We can go back to the C in root position, and then we can go. That's the first inversion of the G chord. If G chord is G, B, D, we can put the G on top. We can still, if we want, put the G on the bottom in the left hand so that it's in root position overall, even though the right hand is inverting it. When we play that first inversion in the right hand, we want to use the thumb, the pointer, and the pinky. Finger 1, finger 2, and finger 5. So I want to show you some things we can do, just going back and forth between the C chord in root position, the G chord inverted in the right hand, but root position overall because I've got the root in the left hand. I want to show you some things we can do. We can do a lot of different things, and I purposely put different feels with it because we can. Yeah, I did it because we can. Haha. So I want you to try that back and forth between the C in root position, the G in first inversion, B, D, G, and again, if you want, you may put it back in root position by playing the root in the left hand. root position overall while the right hand is still inverted. Or you can change the left hand to that same bottom note that the right hand is playing, the B. So pause the recording and yeah, practice it. See what you can come up with. All right. So, welcome back. And this time, what we want to do then is talk about putting all those together. By the way, going from C major to F major, back to C major, back, and going to G major and back to C major. That's called a cadence in the key of C. If we want, we can add an F. That makes it a G7 chord. We call that a 7 because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. From G to F is what we call a seventh if we're talking G up to F. That's what it would be in root position. But right now, we're working on the first inversion. So you can play B, D, G, the regular G major chord, or B, D, F, G, using your ring finger for F, easy for you to say, to make it a G7 chord. But what I want you to do now is just practice noodling around on the C chord in root position, the F chord, inverting it at least in the right hand, second inversion. Again, you may play the root in the left hand, it's in root position overall. And then back to the C chord. Back and forth. And that G chord, whether just the G major or the G7, BDG or BDFG in the right hand. Again, you may play the root in the left hand, or you may leave it inverted overall and play the B, that bottom note, in the left hand as well. And then it's first inversion overall. And then back to the C. So practice that. Go back and forth between the C, the first inversion F, C, back and forth between the C and the, I said first inversion, I meant second inversion, yeah, second inversion F, C, back and forth between the C and the first inversion G, and the C. Try it. You may have to just do that at first, or slow down and play it one at a time. That's fine. G7 or just plain G. And yeah, there we go. It's very easy to play in the key of C when you know to do all that. And then if you have to start out slow like that, just keep at it, and eventually you'll be able to do all kinds of things. So I was going to get into more than just that, and I was going to get into the usage of different inversions, like there's the first inversion C, E, G, C, the root position F, F, A, C, back to the first inversion C, second inversion G, D, G, B, then add the 7 if you want, the F, back to the first inversion C. Or we can do second inversion C, G, C, E. First inversion F, A, C, F. Back to the second inversion C. To the root position G, or if we want, we can just come down here. That makes it the third inversion G7. Or we can say root position G7, put the F on top. And then back to the second inversion C. And by the way, when you end a song, even if you're ending on an inverted chord in the right hand, you usually want to play the root in the left hand. So it's in root position overall. It just sounds more stable. So that's just kind of a brief overview of what else you can do and what I was going to do if we had time. But we're a little bit over, so I'll call it a day. Don't know what else I would call it. It's not night. Of course, it might be night when you're watching this, but it's not night now when I'm making it. Anyway, that's how to make it in music in the key of C, the most basic way to do so. And like I said, the more comfortable you get with changing around between those chords, among those chords and the inversions, the more you can make your own music. Plus, like I said, chords, well, chords are great for any kind of music, and you use them a lot in contemporary music. In fact, a lot of times in contemporary music, you'll just have lyrics and the chord names written above them. So that's one reason it's so important to learn the chords, as well as for improvising your own music. So if you have any questions, let me know. Leave a comment. And I hope you have a blessed day with Jesus. If you're interested in lessons with Revelation and Restoration Academy of Music and Drama, let me know. I'll put an email address or a web address in the video description. And I hope to see you again. By the way, if you do decide to take lessons, first lesson is free if you go directly through the Academy. And the first month is guaranteed after that first lesson if you go directly through the Academy. I'm currently teaching through the Academy directly and through a third-party company, and the third-party company doesn't give that offer. I don't set things like that up myself with the third-party company. But if you go directly through the Academy, then first lesson is always free. First month after that is guaranteed. All right. That's it. I'm Chris Murdoch for Revelation and Restoration Academy of Music and Drama. God bless. In Jesus' name.